The next morning, Margaret sat at her kitchen table, just as she always had, the same chair, the same diary, the same cup of tea. But something felt different. The conversation with Sarah kept replaying in her mind. For the first time, she had said it out loud. "I don't feel quite like myself." The words had seemed to hang in the air long after Sarah had gone home. Margaret stared at the diary in front of her. The appointments were all there. The reminders were all there. The notes were all there. So why did she still feel as though something was slipping away? Outside, life carried on as normal. But inside, Margaret was beginning to wonder whether keeping up appearances was becoming harder than anybody realized. Later that week, Sarah found herself thinking about her mum more than usual. Not because anything dramatic had happened, because of all the little things, the things she had barely noticed before, the notes on the fridge, the reminders beside the kettle, the diary that seemed to be open every time she visited. For years, Sarah had thought of these things as habits, part of who Margaret was, organized, prepared, always one step ahead. But now she wasn't so sure. As she stood in the kitchen, her eyes drifted from one reminder to the next. Buy milk, dentist appointment, bin day, call June. Suddenly, they didn't look like ordinary notes anymore. They looked like lifelines, small things helping Margaret hold everything together. And for the first time, Sarah began to wonder something. How long had her mum been working this hard, without anybody noticing? The truth was, Margaret wasn't giving up. Quite the opposite. She was trying harder than ever. Every appointment was written down, every phone call was noted, every date was checked, and then checked again if somebody mentioned something for next week. Margaret would find her diary just to make sure. If she wrote something on the calendar, she would come back later and read it again, not because she was careless, because she no longer trusted herself the way she once had. That was the part nobody could see. The effort, the concentration, the constant checking. From the outside, Margaret looked organized, in control, perfectly capable. But behind every reminder and every note was a woman working harder than she had ever worked before, just to keep life feeling normal. Life. A few days later, Sarah stopped by again. This time, she wasn't thinking about the shopping or the washing up or what needed doing around the house. She was thinking about her mum. They sat together at the kitchen table, talking about ordinary things, until Sarah asked a simple question. "Mum, how long have you been feeling like this?" Margaret looked away, towards the window, towards the calendar, anywhere but Sarah. For a moment, she considered saying what she always said. "I'm fine." But something stopped her. Perhaps she was tired. Perhaps she was relieved. Or perhaps she simply didn't want to carry it alone anymore. "A while," she said quietly. Sarah nodded. She didn't rush in. She didn't correct her. She didn't tell her not to worry. She just listened. And sometimes being listened to is exactly what a person needs most. For a while, neither of them spoke. The kitchen felt quiet, not uncomfortable, just honest. Sarah looked at her mum, really looked at her, not as the woman who always had the answers, not as the woman who fixed everything, just as her mum, a person who was frightened and trying her best. Finally, Sarah reached across the table. "We'll figure this out." Margaret looked up. Sarah smiled. "One step at a time. No grand promises, no dramatic speeches, just 4 simple words, one step at a time." For the first time in months, Margaret felt something she hadn't felt for a while. Relief. Because whatever happened next She no longer had to face it on her own. That afternoon, nothing had really changed. Margaret still had questions. She still felt uncertain, and she still didn't know why things were becoming harder, but something important had changed. She wasn't carrying it alone anymore. As Sarah sat beside her, Margaret realized she didn't have to pretend everything was fine. She didn't have to laugh things off. She didn't have to keep every worry to herself. For months, she had been working harder and harder just to keep life feeling normal. Now somebody finally understood. Not everything, but enough. And sometimes enough is exactly where healing begins. As the afternoon light faded across the kitchen table, Margaret felt something she hadn't felt for a very long time. Not certainty, not answers, just relief. Because whatever came next, she knew she wouldn't be facing it alone. Part 3 coming soon.